Hello there, everybody. My name's Miss Curl. You might have met me maybe on an open evening, or if you came for the taster sessions earlier on this year when we were looking at Prometheus. If you don't know me, I am an English teacher at CNS, one of the many English teachers at CNS. So next year, I might be teaching you English, or if not, I might be teaching you in another year. In addition to being an English teacher, I'm also head of Key Stage 3 English, which means that I sort of run year 7, 8, and 9 in English and kind of make some of the decisions about what units we do and kind of solve problems and things like that. So you'll probably see me kind of running around school next year, busy doing all of that. I want to say a massive, massive welcome to English at CNS. Obviously, this isn't quite what any of us were expecting it to look like. And we were sort of expecting to see you, coming in your colourful t-shirts and having your transition lessons. But what I want to do is offer as much help and guidance as I can, hopefully answer some questions that you might have had and you might have asked me. And then also I wanted to give you a taster of what English is going to be like. I'm actually going to use one of our lessons that we've been using with our year 7s while we've all been at home. Okay, super. So let's make a start then. So first of all just going to sort of start by answering a few questions I feel like you might have, and I'm just going to have to move my face over here. So you might know this already, especially if you've got brothers and sisters at CNS. But if you don't, we have a 2-week timetable at CNS, which means we have a week 1 and a week 2, and then on the 3rd week, you start on the week 1 again. So you do 5 lessons a day and they kind of switch up. So you might have English, math, science, PE, history, and then different subjects the next day. Over that kind of 2-week timetable, so out of those 50 lessons that you will have, you have 8 English lessons and they all last an hour long. They're usually with the same teacher. Occasionally you might have a one-off lesson with somebody, but for the most part, you'll have the same teacher. So I have a year 7 class this year and they saw me 8 times a fortnight, so nearly every day. You will also, unless something very strange happens, you'll have that teacher for English all year, all the way through year 7. A couple of my year 7 from this year wondered whether that once that first 2 weeks was done, whether you would change teacher, but you won't. You'll keep that same English teacher all the way through year 7. You might have a different one in year 8 or year 9 or year 10, but for that 1 year, you'll have that person. And the people in your group will stay the same as well, for English, certainly, because we just sort of mix everybody up. So hopefully that will answer some key questions you might have. In terms of what we're learning, we study English, and we call it English. That's what will be on your timetable. So there's a little bit of English literature and reading books, and there's a little bit of English language, so reading non-fiction things, which are about the real world, and obviously lots of creative writing. It'll probably have lots of similarities with what you do at primary school, which I imagine you call literacy, but it's also going to have some differences. So there'll be certain things that feel familiar and certain things that are new. And our aim essentially is to develop you, and we want you to be fantastic writers and fantastic readers. And that doesn't just mean that you can read a book and comprehend it. It doesn't mean you can physically read the words out and tell me what it means. It's about having your own ideas. We choose texts and books to look at that are full of big ideas and that you can have opinions about. We really want to help you develop those opinions and work out how to phrase those opinions and articulate those opinions. So essentially, we want you to get as excited about English as we all are. We are all super English geeks. And to kind of find your voices, to be able to write your own poetry and short stories and essays so that you've got that voice. A bit more specifically, you might be interested to know what topics we do. So in English, we do a different topic or unit each half term. So we do 6 in each year. In year 7, this is what we do, and this is the order that we do it in. So we start off with Greek myths. So that was when you looked at Prometheus, when you came in for your taster days. We then do a modern novel, so people do different things. We do Frankenstein, which is a fantastic story and something you can really get your teeth into and that you probably will have really big opinions about. We do fantasy, so a little bit of things like Northern Lights, Harry Potter, The Hobbit. We think about that as a genre and how that's developed. What we're currently doing, which is one of my favourites, is detective fiction. So Sherlock Holmes, and Agatha Christie and all the modern versions. So coming up with our own detectives, our own suspects, our own crime scenes. And then we usually finish the year off with a little bit of Shakespeare. You might have done Macbeth before, but we do a little bit of Macbeth and we look specifically at women and the witches and how they've been presented. So that will be the first year that you have at CNS. Lots of people often ask me about homework. So each topic has a little homework booklet we make that goes with it. So each half term you'll be given a homework booklet and there's one task to do each week. So sometimes that's going to be about learning new words. We try and develop your vocabulary, so learning what they mean and how to spell them. And then there'll also be a reading or a writing task. So for example, for the first one, Greek myths, we get you to read an amazing Greek myth story called the Odyssey. And you read like a little bit of it each week, and then you sort of do tasks and answer questions. Ultimately, around 30 minutes per week for English homework is what we're aiming for to go alongside the 8 lessons. And now I need to tell you about something very, very exciting. Before I kind of launch off into the lesson, I want to tell you a little bit about a little project we're going to set you over the summer holidays to keep you occupied if you're feeling a bit bored and you're kind of trapped indoors or you're trapped in the garden, something that you can do that hopefully should be really good fun. So bear with me and I'm just going to jump to the project so I can show you what it is. Okay, so this is the summer reading project that we will send out to you so you have a copy of this. So it is optional, it's not compulsory, no one will get in trouble for not doing it, but I think it's a really, really good way to kind of enter into English at CNS and at secondary school and just to have quite a nice activity to do over the summer. So it's mainly a reading challenge, and on the last couple of pages of this task, if I just scroll down, we have all of our recommended reads for year 7 and 8. So it's kind of getting you started on those. And, you know, I can scroll out, you can see that there are loads of recommended reads. Not quite sure why those ones are highlighted. Let's change those back. Loads and loads of different things that you can read. And what we've done is we've put it into categories. So action, adventure, mystery and thrillers, or if you want funny books, if you like dystopia and science fiction, if you're interested in thinking about relationships, or if you're into fantasy, no matter what book you're into, we've tried to give you some options there. And you know, I'm a really big believer that people that think they don't like reading, you probably just haven't found the thing you want to read yet. You know, the amount of books that I put down because I think they're boring. And you just have to be brave enough to be like, that's not for me, but I'll try something else. If you're someone who at the moment isn't a big reader and you know that you maybe struggle with reading or you sort of struggle to find the attention and kind of sit down for long enough to read, then all of the ones that have got little stars next to them are a really, really good place to start. They're maybe a bit shorter, a bit simpler. They're not too tricky. So they're a really good entryway in. And then hopefully, if you read a few of those, you'll be ready maybe to move up to one of the ones that don't have the stars on them. So essentially, the project is we want you to choose 3 books from that list. Hopefully you might have some hanging around, or the libraries might be open soon, or you might be able to get hold of them. If you don't have a way to get hold of them, read anything that you've got your hands on. And for each of those 3 books, we want you to do a little task. So there's an option of different choices. There are a range of different options that you can choose from here. So you could design a new front cover for your book. You could design a board game based around your book. You could do a little summary. You could do a review of it. You could do a comic strip. You could design a bedroom for one of the characters. The one I'd probably go for is the Writer's Challenge. So you can choose one of the books and write a story, poem, or other piece of writing inspired by it. So either adding an extra event or doing an alternate ending, or something I think is always really fun is thinking about a different character and writing it from their perspective. And whichever of those you do, you can bring them in. So hopefully you'll have read 3 books and you'll have 3 different tasks from this list that you have done to go with them. And then all you have to do in September is bring it in and you can give it to your form tutor and you can get a prize and you can start earning house points for your form because you'll be in one of 5 houses. So I'll send all this to you, and if you've got any other questions about it, let your teacher know and they can pass them on to me. So we're going to go back to the PowerPoint now and I'm going to give you a taster of one of our English lessons. Okay, so we thought about what would be a good taster for you, what would be a really good lesson to do for this transition lesson. And I thought to give you a really realistic taster, I'm going to share with you a lesson that we actually have been using with our Year 7s in our current unit. So this was the first lesson that we did with our Year 7s for the detective fiction unit they're currently doing. And if you've got brothers and sisters in Year 7 at CNS, you might have seen this before. So lesson 1 is called Investigating a Detective's Desk. So kind of always being the detective and investigating the detective. So hopefully that'll make a little bit more sense as we get going. So I want you to have a look at this little bit of text on the left-hand side here. I'll read it out for you in a moment. And once I've read it out, I want you to pause the video and I want you to have a go at these 2 things. So first of all, I want you to write down 4 things that are on the detective's desk. Nice and easy, hopefully. Secondly, a bit trickier, I want you to use your inference. I want you to be a detective, to read between the lines. And I want you to write down 4 things you think you can work out about the man who owns this desk from the description. So being a bit of a detective and trying to investigate the person who owns this desk from the clues. So I'm going to read it out to you now. The screams of sirens sounded distantly outside. And then there was quiet, stillness. There was nothing to hear. The desk was littered with his things. A broken lamp, the remains of a cigarette, burnt out. A pocket watch engraved with his ex-wife's name, its ticking stopped and silent. Dead matches burnt to the colour of midnight. A whiskey bottle smeared from the fingerprints of his drunken palms. A notepad filled with frantic scribbles. A coin, its edges worn away. The clock struck midnight as he walked through the door into his office. Okay, so pause the video now, have a go at those 2 tasks for me. Okay, so hopefully you managed to have a go at that. So for comprehension for this one, the 4 things that they might have found on the detective's desk. You might have written down a broken lamp, the remains of a cigarette, a pocket watch, dead matches, a whiskey bottle, a notepad, a coin. The clock, I suppose, is in the room, even though it's not technically in the office. So you might have had 4 of those. In terms of inference, 4 things that you can work out about the man who owns this desk. Normally, I'd be asking you for your ideas here, but you're very far away. So I'm just going to go through some of the ideas you might have got. You might have maybe got the idea that he doesn't seem very happy, that he's maybe left in a hurry, possibly, because it's a bit of a mess, that there's definitely maybe some background there with his wife and his ex-wife. Maybe he's kind of heartbroken. He's very untidy. So you might have had a few things like that, and we're going to come back to that one later. So we've kind of done a little bit entry level detective work there. We're going to ratchet it up a little bit now. I want you to have a look at this table that I've drawn up on here, and I've picked out a few individual quotes from that extract that are the clues. I've been the detective, I've picked out these clues, and now I need to interpret those clues and work out what they are showing me. Now, there's always a most obvious meaning, but then you can kind of push through that and you can think, well, what clues was the writer trying to leave for me here? What else do they want me to know about this person and pick up on if I'm being a really intelligent, kind of focused, alert reader? So, for example, for this one, the most obvious meaning of dead matches burnt to the colour of midnight, that obviously suggests that he maybe smokes, the fact that there are all these matches everywhere. But could that suggest something a little bit deeper? So if I come out of this, I think that word dead I'm really drawn to. They don't just say used up matches or used matches. The fact they've said dead matches is quite an unusual thing to say, I think. And the colour of midnight, it's very, very sinister imagery. So maybe could this be a little bit of a kind of clue about the detective? Could the detective maybe be quite worn out or kind of near to the end of his life? Or could he be in danger? Could it almost be a symbol of the danger and of the darkness that's happening there? Does death surround this man? With the whiskey bottle, a whiskey bottle smeared from the fingerprints of his drunken palms. So we can tell there that he's been drinking whiskey, obviously, his fingerprints are over the bottle. But do we learn anything else about him from that? The fact that it's on his office desk, the fact that his drunken palms. He's not just drinking it, he's drinking it to the point where he is drunk at work. So does that maybe tell us something? A pocket watch engraved with his ex-wife name, its ticking stopped in silence. So we know here that he is divorced. That's an obvious meaning. But could we think of the fact that he's still got a pocket watch and it's got his ex-wife's name on it? Could that be symbolic in some way about the way he feels about his wife or their relationship, or what that suggests about his heart, possibly, and his emotions? Can we read between the lines a little bit further there? With the coin, why might he have that coin? Why might its edges be worn away? What might that be a clue to? So again, I'm going to ask you to pause the video here. I will send a worksheet that has this on, but if not, you can just draw it out on your piece of paper with a ruler. It shouldn't take too long. And again, I want you to pause and I want you to think about how you would fill this sheet in. What obvious meanings can you get from these clues if you're, a rookie detective that's just started? But if you're like an expert detective, what else might you be able to pick up from these clues? Okay, so pause the video, come back to me when you're done. Okay, so hopefully you managed to fill this in with lots and lots of interesting ideas. We're going to do one more layer now. So we've been thinking a lot about the writer and the writer leaving clues for us as a reader to sort of pick up on and to learn about characters. So I really, really want to push in on this idea of the writer and what the writer's doing. This is something we do a lot at CNS. We think about the writer as a person who made up all of these characters, almost like a kind of puppet master, who is making the characters do exactly what they want them to do. And we as readers are supposed to watch that and kind of pick up on all those clues that have been left. And then when we're being the writer, when we're writing our own stories and our own poems and descriptions, we are being the puppet master. We're making decisions about all the characters we've made up and what we want them to do. And we're picking the words we use to describe them very carefully, because those words are then going to sort of spark off an idea in the reader's mind. So I've picked out a tiny little bit from a bit later in the description of this detective. And for this, I'd like to have a pen. If you've got a highlighter or a different colour pen, that would also be really useful. And we're going to do something called annotating, which is where we look at a little bit of writing and we really pick it apart, and not in a way to kind of kill it and make it, boring, but because writers sometimes spend so long writing and editing their pieces, and they've put all of these clues in, so it's kind of giving them the credit that they deserve and sort of showing them the respect that they deserve and making sure we don't miss anything. So again, I'll read it out to you. The lines around his eyes were like cracks in a dried riverbed. His fingernails were splintered from where he chewed them. His tie was loosened. So I want you to have a think. What's jumping out at you in that extract? What words or phrases do you think have been chosen on purpose? And that's what we're thinking about. What has the writer done on purpose here? Now, the isn't particularly interesting, possibly. But I think the fact that he's got lines around his eyes is quite interesting. And I think this bit, that his eyes are like cracks in a dried riverbed, that's really interesting to me. The fact that they said that his fingernails were splintered, I think that's something that I would find quite interesting. I'm trying to get that to highlight on the computer. There we go. The fact that he chews them, the fact that he's chewing his fingernails, he's a grown-up who chews his fingernails, does that maybe tell us something? The fact that his tie is loosened, maybe that's interesting. So I've just gone through with my highlighter and picked out all the bits that jump out at me. And then I want to think, well, why are they there then? Why is it that they seem interesting to me? What might they suggest? So, cracks in a dried riverbed. Now, hopefully you have seen an image of what that looks like. Actually, if you hang on a second, I'll see if I can find a picture for you. Okay, so I managed to find one. This is a picture of a dried riverbed. So that's what they're saying his face looks like, with these kind of wrinkles and the kind of cracks in his face. So what can we learn about him from that? Well, kind of obviously, he definitely seems quite old, doesn't he? He maybe has kind of had a hard life, possibly. Certainly he doesn't take care of himself. That's for sure, if he's looking like that. Maybe there's a sense that he's lost something. This riverbed didn't used to look like that. It used to be kind of a flowing, powerful river. So maybe there is a sense of like a loss of vitality and life here. Maybe we're supposed to think about what happened. Where did all of that life go? What's happened to him? Maybe there's the idea that he doesn't give very much away. He's not lively. There's something a bit dead inside about him. That he could be kind of quite cold and dry as a character. All of those possible ideas. We don't know 100%. We're just sort of guessing and coming up with sort of probable guesses based on the information the writer's given us. So again, I want you to pause the video here and I want you to think about the other bits that I've highlighted. So splintered, chewed them, loosened, the cracks in a dried riverbed. What do you find interesting about them? What do you think that you could work out about the detective based on that description? And then come back to me when you've had a go and you've had a go at making a few notes. You can always write the quote out if you don't have the worksheet and just write round it. Okay, so hopefully you had some ideas there. You might have maybe thought about the fact that he's chewing his fingernails. Does that make him seem nervous, possibly? Is there that sort of anxiety that's underlying him and his personality? The fact that his fingernails are splintered kind of reminds me of this. It seems like there's almost a pattern here. There are kind of cracks, splintered. There's this kind of sense that he's broken in some way. And if we go back to the quotes from earlier, there were quite a few references to him being broken, weren't there? We click back, the dead matches, the pocket watch is broken, it stopped ticking, the coins kind of worn away. There's this general sense of everything being a bit broken and tired. Maybe that could be symbolic of him himself as a detective. The fact that his tie is loosened, does that mean he's very tired and he's working incredibly hard? Does it mean that he doesn't really care? Is it that he's a bit scruffy? Is it that he doesn't take care of himself? And that's an indication of that. So hopefully you got some ideas and you might have come up with things way more than I came up with or different to what I came up with. That's kind of the fun of it. You all read it slightly differently. Okay, so moving on to our last big task then. So one of the things we're really keen on at CNS is that you should have your own opinions about text. So you should have your own opinions about that detective based on the things you found interesting. It's not about what I found interesting or what I think about him. It's about what you found interesting and what you wanted to talk about. But it's also really important that you can articulate and phrase those ideas so that people take you seriously and that you learn how to do that in a kind of formal and sophisticated way. So earlier on, way back, if I go back in the slide to here, I asked you to come up with 4 inferences, 4 things that you could work out about him if you were looking for the clues. And I want you to go back to those notes now, but we're going to try and develop them and make them a little bit more formal, a bit more sophisticated. We're going to try and upgrade those answers. So one of my first initial thoughts was that the detective doesn't take care of himself, which is okay, but I want to upgrade it a little bit. I want to make this a little bit better. So if I'm looking at the help box here, I could do that by adding quotes, so bits of text to support what I'm saying. I could explain what I mean a bit more. Maybe I could think about how some of the quotes are sort of subtle or symbolic. So I could say, in the extract, the detective seems to be, maybe I could even say self-destructive. He doesn't just not care about himself. Right, and broken. What I then want to do is think of some quotes that I could use to back that up. So maybe I could use cracks and splintered as my quotes. Words like cracked and splintered run throughout the text. And hopefully you can see here that I've just sort of dropped those into my sentence, but I've put little inverted commas around the outside so you know they're quotes. But I haven't sort of said, this is my quote, quote marks, quote marks. I've just kind of dropped them in and then it sounds a bit nicer as you're reading it out. So I've said words like cracked and splintered run throughout the text, perhaps suggesting that the detective himself is broken, either from past experiences, maybe like the pocket watch and the ex-wife, or from the I want to say something about the struggles of his career or the hardships of his career. I want to work out how I want to phrase that, from the difficult nature of his career choice. Maybe I could say the violent nature. I could play around with it and see how I am. So that is obviously a little bit better than this. And I could even go back and put more quotes in if I wanted to. You know, if I went right back to here, I could maybe talk about, you know, the burnt the colour of midnight. I could talk about the ex-wife if I wanted to and what that might suggest. But I have up-leveled it a bit. So the last thing I want you to do today is I want you to come back to one of your inferences you came up with earlier, either him being untidy or him having some issues with alcohol maybe, or the stuff about his difficult maybe relationships and being heartbroken, whatever inferences you came up with. And I want you to see if you can turn them from looking like that into looking like this. So maybe having some little, really short little quotes, one-word quotes you just drop in with those quote marks, and maybe just explaining a little bit more what those show and how those back up what you're saying. And this is then going to be really good preparation for what we do. Okay, so have a go at that, at least with one, if not with a couple of your inferences, and then come back and I'll just finish off really quickly. Okay, so hopefully you had a go at that and didn't find it too difficult. If you did find it tricky, that's okay. You know, this is sort of taking a bit of a step up to what we do at secondary school. So we're going to do lots and lots more of that. But I wanted to kind of give you just a little extra challenge if you are interested, if you're a big creative writer. So in the lesson after this, we asked our year sevens to write their own little version of this, of, you know, a description of a detective's desk, and to come up with their own detective and their own backstory and their own personality. And I wanted to just share one of those that one of our year sevens submitted, which is just on the side here. So the desk was an island of life in the dead room. A swarm of casebooks had overrun the wood, leaving little space for the rest of the clutter. Old pens, outdated papers, and books all vied for space, sometimes tumbling into the small area reserved for the newest documents. If you concentrated hard enough, though, you could see the story the debris told. The pristine corner of a buried certificate where can't quite read what that says. Sorry. Oh, there. Sorry. The pristine corner of a buried certificate there. A photo of a smiling child there. Happy days, harder times. A worn flyer topped the pile, advertising holidays far away. A small locked box stood in the corner, sitting atop a humming PC. The monitor beside it displayed its stock image screensaver, a happy family playing on the beach. It was quite ironic, really. So I picked this one out because when we got our year 7 work in, we thought it was so full of ideas and inferences and clues that we could, you know, pick apart just like we did the other one. And what I also really like about it is all the crossings out. And this is something we absolutely encourage our students to do when you're writing. You do a first draft and then you edit it and you pull it apart and you make it the best it can be. And this student really wanted this to be the best that it could be. So if you want another little extra job to do or an extra activity to do, you could have a go at writing your own description of a detective's desk, just like this one. Hopefully I've answered lots of the questions you might have had about English and you've had a bit of a flavour of what it will be like. If you have any more questions, do ask your teachers, because your teachers will have been, you know, sending students to CNS for a really long time, so they will probably know the answers to a lot of the questions. If you've got other questions, I've put my school email on this slide, so you can ask your parents to send them to me and I will try and get back to you. Please, you know, don't worry, it's going to be really, really fun. We're really looking forward to having you and having a new year 7 to come as our current year 7 to move up to year 8. And I hope you have a really, really lovely summer and happy reading and writing. Okay, bye-bye.